All right, so if you read through the lesson, it's great. We're going to be referencing the lesson, but um, some of this goes with it, some of it doesn't, which is common for my classes. Sorry, it's just the way I like to do it. I appreciate the author's points on things. I just try to fluff it in some areas or think of things that we can talk about outside of what the book discusses too. So, first and foremost, sibling rivalry in the Bible. Um, Lots of sibling rivalry moments in the Bible, more than I have up probably listed here, but these are some ones that really stuck out to me. The story of Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau, Abimelech and his brothers, Leah and Rachel, Joseph and his brothers. All these stories have things in common that we will see throughout this study that are going to help us as parents know how to navigate these conversations and these situations with our own children. So, what is sibling rivalry? I think it's a pretty simple thing, but let's talk about that. What would you say sibling rivalry is?
Uh, Strong competitive nature between siblings.
Okay, competitive nature between siblings.
Audrey,
Is that bad?
tell us about it.
Is that bad? Competitive nature between siblings?
I like it. I think it's funny.
You think it's fun?
I think it is not necessarily evil.
Okay. Yeah, it can kind of provoke one another to better things even. Some of that competition makes you better at what you want to do or what you're trying to do. I think it's more than just verbal argumentation. It's maybe more than just fighting. There can be underlying factors of jealousy, things that are stewing in one's mind, things they perceive of the other kid. I will tell you a popular one that you will come into if you haven't already, if you have multiple kids, which is why don't you discipline them when they do that? Or why am I the only one that gets this conversation or this talk or this discipline? So that can come up. What does it matter in families in the church? How does it impact us here in this building even, or could it impact us here in this building? Sibling rivalry. Anybody know of families who live in the same community but go to maybe different churches? They live within 30 minutes of each other, but they'll go to different churches. Sometimes they do that just because that's their preference. But I do know stories where they did that because they don't want to be where their sibling is. I know that exists. Has anyone ever experienced anything like that or know of anything like that? No? Maybe? Okay. So it can impact the church. These things, these feelings can weigh on family members, especially if it's one of those, I'm going to call it country church, where most of it is family. And then you've got the one that doesn't want to be there anymore. And all of a sudden it's, why don't you want to worship with us, worship with your family? That can cause tension, uneasiness. So there are things that can affect in the church. And even among our children. If Hunter and Kylie are at it all the time, what's the example they're setting to their peers in there, right? Why do you think sibling conflict is one of the earliest struggles in Scripture? The second sin, I think, that we know of is based on sibling rivalry. Do you think there's something to be said about that? Or is it just coincidence?
I think it tells us that it's something inherent in our nature. I mean, it's not something we invented.
Okay. Been around for a minute.
All the way back.
Yep. Goes back to the very, very beginning. In the Psalm 133 verse, and contextually we can talk about that, but how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. We can apply that to our brothers and sisters in Christ, but we can also apply that to our siblings. When you're at peace with your family, how much more encouraging is it? How much more more love is there than if there's rivalry and tension and not wanting to talk to each other, touch each other, whatever. That's not a good atmosphere for Christian growth and encouragement. Let's hone in a little bit more on Cain and Abel for a second. So first siblings in Scriptural, first rivalry, first murder, Genesis 4. The root issue, I think, of Cain and Abel would have been jealousy, anger, and failure to control or to have self-control. God's warning was sin is crouching at your door, but you must rule over it. So, these feelings can come about, tension or jealousy, anger, things that might make us or our children look on a family member with disdain or disgust or anger, whatever. But we still have a choice how we respond to that, right? You must choose or you must rule over it. So, what warning signs of rivalry do we see before it escalates? If we're looking at Cain and Abel, what kind of warning signs do you think might have been there?
And I find it odd that on someone's first angry outburst that goes straight to capital murder. So I would imagine those jealous fits of rage or maybe just disdain for his brother. Probably, I would almost imagine had to be there from way before this offense we read about.
Yeah. So some of these signs, from a parent's perspective, looking at this, it's difficult to know how your kids might be feeling toward one another until they are expressing it one day. Hey, why don't you do this with them, or why don't you talk to them like this, whatever the case may be. Then you start to realize their perspective is a little off. So we have to have communication with our children to know what's going on. We also need to kind of watch them, right? Especially with little kids, stealing toys at a young age. They start taking toys and then they start throwing each other under the bus for, he took my toy, no, he took my toy. When we start seeing that happening, and I think where we get in trouble is we say, I'm tired of hearing this. You guys figure this out. Don't come tattletelling to me anymore. Play with your own toys. Stop bothering his toys, whatever. And if we don't get involved sometimes, what will happen is one or the other of them is going to get real smart and start kind of poking and prodding and getting the other kid angrier and trying to get them in trouble sometimes. So that starts at an early age, and that can move all the way through later years if we're not careful with it and take care of it. So intervention, and we'll look at some conclusive thoughts of how we can get involved in parents and things we need to do to help. Jacob and Esau, rivals from the womb, and I think we would agree that a lot of this was driven by parental favoritism. Okay, Isaac to Esau, Rebekah to Jacob. We saw results in that story. We see deception, broken trust, estrangement from the brother for quite a long time. So, we know the story. We need to think about the question. I think we know the answer, but does favoritism fuel rivalry? I will not get that word right. Rivalry the same today? I believe it does. If we're not careful, then our kids are going to think we're playing favorites. And I just told you a story about that Sunday. The older two think, Thatcher's our favorite. And we're always like, he's not our favorite, it's just you two are demanding a lot of negative attention right now. So maybe we like him more right now, but he's not our favorite. No, I hope we all know kind of what we mean by this, and we learn from the story that we'll look at here in just a minute too of Joseph. The same thing. Dave, go ahead.
I was going to say with that favoritism, sometimes it's perceived favoritism.
Oh, yeah.
I've had conversations with one of my brothers that he said because I was the youngest, I was favored and didn't have to do certain things. But he didn't see me do certain things. So he perceived that I never had to use me. So
Yep. Yeah, that's a conversation we have to have. Go ahead.
I also bring to my head that cartoon that typically people show when they're talking about education and what each kid needs. And you've got all these kids looking over a fence, but they're all different sizes, and you give them all the same box to stand on. Well, some of them can see over the fences, and some of them can't because of their size. Well, what you need to do is give them all the different size boxes so all of them can see over the fence. Meaning, all of our kids need different things to achieve, what they need to achieve or however you want.
No, that's yeah, absolutely. And explaining that to kids is difficult. Um, we're there with a lot of situations, and so we've had to explain to the youngers the, the mental state and understanding of the older. We've had to explain to the older the health issues and the hormonal changes of the girl, and helping them understand that this is real, not made up, and don't touch her. Leave her alone. Um, explaining to the littles things about the elders and things they get to do that are because of their age and their involvement. It's a constant conversation, guys. And you feel like you're justifying yourself to your little shit kids. And, like as an adult, you're just like, just trust me that I'm not playing favorites. Someday you'll get to do these things, and you get tired of saying that sometimes. But it's so true that each kid, we've talked about this so much, but amen to Natalie is just dead on it. Everything requires different attention, different discipline, different encouragements at different times in various manners. So it is just a roller coaster ride for us to figure this out.
Biggest things for them to even understand or not understand is those personality differences too. Like, we have one that things go super easy for, and then others that take more time to learn things, and it's, that's, I think, an internal rivalry a little bit. That why does that come easier to them, or why are they done, or they get a good things, and just not recognizing their own talents, but being envious of the other's talent.
So what are they doing that we've talked about? What is the thief of joy? Comparing, right? And some of that falls on us too, to remember how we talk about things. I know I have to be very careful. All the time I'm saying things that I don't think about. I'm like, man, how do these people afford these $60,000, $70,000 trucks they're driving on the road all the time? Comparing what I'm driving to what they're driving, but we don't know situations, circumstances. If they have kids, no kids, retired, not retired, we don't know those things. So I have to remind myself, be careful not to compare, because they'll do this with each other. Good. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Anything else? David's family. We could spend a quarter on David's family. There's so much. I mean, talk about dysfunctional family. We picked on poor Eli. David would have fit the picture too. But with all the things that happen with his kids, I mean, we have rape, murder. We have a passive father at times. So his passivity after Amnon's sin against Tamar, Absalom's bitterness leading to rebellion and war. So a warning against unchecked conflict in the home. And what happens when parents fail to confront wrongdoing in the family? I think we can all answer the question, what happens? What happened in David's family is catastrophic, but to at least a degree, or some degree, that happens in our own house if we don't confront and handle these situations. We have to intervene, and it gets exhausting. Sometimes it's great to go smooth. I don't know, maybe 1 in 100, but it happens.
I think to add on to that, it's not always have your, one parent in control of the punishing.
Mm.
You know, when your dad gets home, you just wait.
Yeah.
The rest of the day slide. But when your dad gets home, we're gonna go back to what happened this morning and really drive it up to you.
Yeah, that's always a fun conversation. It's my favorite.
Or you get home and one tries to tattle tale on the other, and the other parent steps in. I've already handled it.
Yeah.
Just sit down and
I'm gonna buy you dinner. Yeah, and that, that parenting method, whichever way you choose, that's up to you. I can tell you, I think personally, opinion time, but it is very important for the mother to administer discipline so their kids learn to respect the mother as well. She is an authoritative figure. She has authority over me. She can decide to punish me, whatever that punishment looks like. I think that's needed, but there's also something to be said about that, where they get told, all right, when your dad gets home, we're going to have this conversation. Because I remember being in that seat and thinking, I'm going to die. And for the next 5 hours, I get to think about death. So it can do something to you psychologically.
usually flips on some very good behavior.
Yeah. Can I clean the bathroom?
Show me how to start the motor.
Yeah. I love you, Mom.
Is that, you think it's universal, that kids, I know Lana said, like, the male teachers, when she was teaching, always had an easier time with discipline. And I even substitute taught for a bit.
They love you.
They were good kids.
I'm listening.
But just, males seem to have an easier time, from what she said, with with kids respecting their authority, and even at home, she noticed, like, our kids will jump a little more when I say to do something. And Izzy, like, chimed in the other day. She was like, yeah, we would always listen to Dad, even though Mom told us 50 times. When Dad said it, we just listened to him. She didn't really offer why. She just, like, we just did. So is that a pretty universal thing?
I don't know. My gut reaction is yes, but I think it's also highly dependent on the situation. If we think about, was this when you stayed home?
When Izzy said that, or what?
Was you said it was a teaching class.
Yeah, both teaching class and then at home.
So at home, this is just my view on home, for whatever it's worth. With stay-at-home moms, I think that it's 24/7, right? They're at home all the time. They hear Mom all day long. Mom's tired. She's tired of serving. So some of that may slip through the cracks, where she's just tired, or doesn't even have the effort to get up and discipline anymore. And they see that, and they learn that. Whereas Dad, he's not been home all day. He's going to respond. He's going to react pretty immediate. So they get used to that. I think that's possible. Anybody disagree, agree? I got one nod. Kind of, sort of, maybe.
I also think,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I also think it comes with age, like, depending on what age you were teaching. Teenage boys are gonna kind of show their dominance over mom sometimes too.
100%.
Son to mother, I would agree. Not always necessarily son to someone else's mom.
No.
That may be different.
It even, like, our daughter, like, it was the other day at dinner is what it was. She's like, Presley, eat your food. Presley, eat your food. And she just, I don't want, no, Presley, eat your food right now. Okay. So, I just didn't know if it was a universal thing, if it's the bass of the voice.
It could be that dominance. What's your take?
When he did that, Presley, eat your, he dropped it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You do that with dogs. Our dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, Jessica can tell the dogs to do something, and then I can tell the dog to do something that's very different.
Tuck tail.
I wonder if there's something.
I'm sure there is.
Have you punted it across
I mean, even God moves thunder and light. I mean, you know, like, he got angry. I think there's something too, just maybe that voice.
Dominating.
That dominating, it's.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I haven't researched it much, but I'm sure there probably is something to be said about that. But you're not alone. I mean, lots of moms deal with that in their kids and dads.
But I do think, I mean, back to Natalie's point about handling things when you're there, as they get older, there's gonna be times where you're back in the corner. And you just, I mean, I'll be honest, there's times I don't even know how to discipline them sometimes because it's a new situation or I don't expect that out of them at all. And
That's
Well, there's nothing
That's
to
a
be
class.
sad about being said, like, you know, your dad and I need to discuss this together and
Totally.
show them that you are included, you know, in that.
Yeah, and
Volunteer to mow.
and the well, and establishing to your children when you say eat your broccoli, whatever it is, you're gonna do what your mom says the first time. You're reaffirming her authority over the figure too, or over that situation too, by saying things like that, and they'll start to tie those things together. But yeah, it's kids. Like we know what we're talking about. Why am I teaching this class? I just whip them. I don't know. They eventually listen. No, it's great questions and good conversation. Thank you. Okay, so I want to consider. I know that was a very high level, quick review, and that's pretty much a summary of what the book is pointing to. Some examples of family feuds. So I want to dig in a little bit on what are the things we've talked about that will help these situations, how we can intervene, how we need to respond. And the author does highlight these as this. I just added some scripture for us to consider. One is reclaiming family priorities. So we think about these three passages, two of which for sure we've referenced, but Joshua 24:15, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Deuteronomy 6:6, we pound on that for probably 3 classes. And then Matthew 6:33, seeking first the kingdom of God. Now, when I say these things, I don't just mean that as a husband and wife, right? A mother and father saying, okay, this is what we are going to do. We're going to seek first. This is the whole family unit. Okay, we're talking about this with our kids, showing them in Scripture that we're going to choose godliness over worldliness. So sometimes we need to kind of reel it in. And when the reins get flying flippantly around and say, hey guys, we need to regroup. Maybe it's been a week or two since our nightly prayer because life got busy, right? Things happen. Hey, everybody upstairs, we need to have family prayer, family discussion. Do those things. Don't think it's silly. Don't think it won't do anything or go anywhere. It does help. It does help. Make sure they know where your priorities are and where your priorities are as leaders of the family. Fight parental passivity. Ephesians 6:4 we've already looked at. Not provoking, but in discipline and instruction. Proverbs 29:15, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left himself brings shame to his mother. And then, of course, 1 Samuel 3:13, we understand and read through the story of Eli that he failed to restrain his sons. So passivity, I think, becomes more popular because of our tiredness, because we've dealt with this issue 100 times today. We're tired of dealing with it. It might be time to change our action plan. If something's already been talked about a few times and we're still not seeing the results we want to see. So we may have to change some consequences. That can be a long road, guys. Some kids are very, very stubborn. Others get it real quick. They snap to it, but we have to stay consistent. And I say that preaching to myself. Because it is so easy. Long day of work, long drive, get home, you're cooked. You don't want to deal with problems. You just want to have a good night, go play some pickleball. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you walk in the house and the mom looks like she's been zombied. You know, she's had attacks all day. The son is a problem, or the daughter's emotional, or the two littles have Tasmanian deviled the house. Whatever the case, we have to step in and take care of those things. How many of y'all get the "Dad's the fun one" talk? Anybody get that talk? Oh yay, the fun one tone. That's because men are just big kids, ladies. We've talked about this. We're going to keep talking about this. Communicate clearly. So, first and foremost, quick to hear, slow to speak. This one, in my opinion, becomes very hard when they hit the teenage years. And I say that because they have logic now. Their logic may not be the right logic, but, it's making sense. They're defending themselves. And they're calling you out on things, and you've got to choose when to smack it out of them. Listen. But like I said, and I'm trying to stick to this myself. I went through the phases of just immediate, just boom voice, knock you down off your feet. You're done talking. I'm talking now. I've done that. All it really did, in my opinion, for those situations was just quiet the room. I don't know how much was really received. The times that I talked calmly but firmly, you could see it. You could see the change on the face, tears, or the red cheeks. You could tell that it's piercing the heart, right? That may be age appropriate too. I think as they get older, they need those hard, sincere conversations. When they're younger, the spanking still work really well, or whatever discipline you choose, as long as you're consistent. But quick to hear, slow to speak. Also, think about this. When you're emotional, and this I think especially happens 13 and up, when you're emotional, you're upset, it's been a long day, sometimes it's easy to almost come down to their level. What I mean by that, it's like you've lowered your maturity to just bicker with them on their level. But if we take some time to respond, we can respond as a parent and not just debate on their age maturity level. Proverbs 15:1, soft answer turns away wrath. And of course, Colossians 3:21, do not embitter your children. So, communicate clearly. Also, make sure they understand they do not have the right to overtalk you. That is not okay. That's going to be a hard conversation, a hard thing to establish. Discipline firmly and maintain authority. Proverbs 13:24 are very early classes. Spare the rod, hate the child. Hebrews 12:11, discipline is painful for the moment. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way they should go. So, we all know and have seen and have understood from our conversations earlier that discipline is necessary. It must take place. It is scriptural. This is God's command to parents. Discipline your kids. And as you discipline them, you are maintaining authority. So you have to discipline, but you have to discipline consistently. Make sure they know the why. They're learning the why of discipline, but they're also learning their why. Why do we do what we do? Why is this wrong? What does this mean? So that as they get older and do things, they won't get into things they shouldn't.
Going back to when you're talking about kind of speaking softly, just when you can stop and be logical and not be emotional. I remember went to a funeral church member around Science Hill, and a lot of people probably know John Baxter, knew John Baxter. He was one of Atlanta's teachers. Absolutely packed funeral house. He was a school teacher and a preacher, and his son gave most of the sermon. And I never knew the man, but everybody's comments on his demeanor about being collected really spoke to me. I remember his son saying, one day I wrecked my car as a teenager into the fence. I was scared to death to tell my dad. He said, Dad, I wrecked the car. He said, he just looked at me and said, well, we'll just add that to the list of things we've done today. And I remember just thinking, wow, if I could ever be that collected. It went, like you could tell, I guess the message was received. The kid knew he shouldn't have wrecked the car. I'm sure he didn't want to. Be more careful next time. But it was like kind of that calming sense of being in control, maybe was better than thunder, Now, if it's habitual, obviously, I'm sure the response changes, but that has always stuck with me about how calm and in control that the child responded to it. I think everybody kind of did when I heard that.
Yeah, that's a solid point. I mean, if my kid was okay and they totaled the Prius, I'd take him out to dinner. But no, what I will say is Sam could probably second this from his upbringing. But I think of all the talks and all the disciplines that I had growing up as a PK, we all know what that means now, right? The memories and the messages that stick out the most were the ones that he didn't come out in a booming voice, or didn't come out, ready to beat me. It was when he approached me out of sincerity, and I'll never forget one particular day. I was in my teens and going through, I guess what you'd call rebellious period. I was skipping church and avoiding his calls, and he came up and he was almost in tears, and he just said, all I care about is that you seek God first in life. I'll never forget that talk, because I could tell it was hard for him. He was scared for me, but the way he approached it, I appreciated. So I think there is a lot to be said about our impact in our calm talk. But you're right. There's also going to be situations that, when they're repetitive, that may not be effective. Yes.
Our mom was a vegan, and she said one time her dad was away preaching at a gospel meeting, and when he got back, he had heard about some misbehavior that she had done. He came in and sat down with the belt and sat down on the bed beside her and said, I want you to take this belt and with me, because I haven't been the kind of parent that I should be if you're acting this way.
Wow.
And she said she was sobbed, like,
I've been like. No, that's good. But he probably knew that would work with her, and that's what makes that unique. He knew how to discipline her. A discipline might have looked different for others.
That's what it's all. It's getting to the heart. Discipline and things like that. And however, it may look different for everybody, but getting to the heart. Why are you have to change this behavior, whatever it be?
Yeah, and I want to encourage, especially young parents, that you'll get there, right? If you're being consistent, you're praying about it, and you're struggling with something that you haven't figured out yet, you're going to get there. Sometimes it takes a long journey to figure out what pierces the heart of a child, but once you figure it out, you can really work on that and mold that. So, positive thoughts. See, I do have positive thoughts on this. All right. Obviously, love each child equally. We looked at favoritism. Genesis 37:3-4, favoritism. Romans 2:11, God shows no partiality. James 2:1 tells us not to show partiality. So we must love our children equal. We have to reemphasize this to our kids all the time. Like, we love each of you the same. And there was a stage Kylie went through a couple years ago. She was like, "But you love me the most, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't love you the most. I love you all the same. But you're my favorite daughter."
I think you have to teach them to love each other too. And that's really hard.
That is hard.
But you're just gonna have to start crying. When we're gone as parents,
That's who they have. Yeah.
and they need to realize that and not be against each other, and they're a team.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's true. We try to emphasize that regularly, and that's a conversation we actually had. I had with Hunter probably about 4 years ago. I think Tate or it was Tate. I think he was just kind of getting on his nerves. Always wanting to be around him. I said, someday, buddy, y'all ain't gonna be in the same house. You're gonna be away. He's not gonna have brother right here with him, and that's what he loves right now. That's what he wants. And I said, in all honesty, you need to soak it up too, because you're gonna miss it too one day. And I'll never forget. He cried hard after that conversation, like just thinking about what family means. So have those conversations. They're hard conversations, but they're needed, I think. Everything about this is hard. Kids are hard, guys. Why do we have kids? No, I'm joking. All right. Pray consistently for wisdom and peace. Do this in your own prayers. Do this with your spouse. Do this with your kids. I try to do better when we do say prayer, thinking about, please grant us wisdom or give us wisdom to lead our children, right? Let them hear you pray for that. Pray for them. Or if you have one-on-one prayers with your kids, make sure they hear these things, that we're asking for these things. God tells us to ask for it, James 1:15. Pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Pray about everything, Philippians 4:6-7. Prayer is so important. And when your kids go through hardships, and they will, to some extent, some worse than others, they need to know that that's where they can go, that they can talk to God. That's where comfort and peace will be found. We'll take care of the physical things as much as we can, but they need all the support they can have and know that God is there listening to them. So, with all these being said, reclaim family priorities, fight parental passivity, communicate clearly, discipline firmly and maintain authority, love each child equally, pray consistently for wisdom and peace. Which of these is the most difficult, and why? There's no right answer. I'm just picking your brain. What would you say is the most difficult, even if you think it's maybe just for you?
Personally, the passivity.
Okay? Passivity?
All day long.
Yeah? I think that's hard for a mom, especially a stay-at-home mom. I really do.
All of them, actually.
Well, no, you're right. That's a good point. I can see that. Yeah. So passivity. What else?
I just think communication. I think lack of communication exists on so many fronts that it's probably difficult. When you're like, you should know better. You know what I mean? I think we use that. You should, but certain things, but I guess not.
What amount of logic are we expecting?
Right. I guess not being clear about something like that.
Ollie?
I just pray all the time for God's grace to cover all of those areas, all the ways that I mess up, because you can try to do your best at all those things, but if, it's not God-centered, it's.
I think I agree. They are all challenging. Now, one of these may be more difficult than some for us, but they're all a challenge. Yes.
I think something that goes along with praying consistently for wisdom and peace is, in a lot of what we talked about and these examples we talked about, there's always something that's being revealed by these conflicts and problems, and, sometimes it was that there was, you know, favoritism being shown, there was something that needed to change in the parent. And sometimes it's something in the child, some attitude or whatever that is being, revealed, that, and not just taking the time to say, stop it, leave it alone, but to try to redirect that energy or emotion or whatever it is to something better, when they're fussing about, well, he got more potato chips than I did, you don't worry about it. I've told my kids several times when they get that mode, I heard this somewhere one time, and I just love it so much. Don't look in your brother's bowl to see if he got more than you. Look and see if he got enough. Make sure he's taken care of. And just trying to change that mindset, rather than just getting to quit fussing.
Yeah.
Because that only lasts a few minutes,
Yep.
That's really good. There could be a need, child needs from the parents that this is the way they communicate. I need to hang out with mom and dad. Maybe a little more. Maybe need some dad time or some mom time or whatever. Maybe that's how it manifests.
I think that's part of that discussion we had about knowing your kids.
Yeah.
Because you can pick up on behaviors, and you know that that's not usually how they act. And they'll have their tells, and you'll pick up on that.
Right.
You are paying attention.
I think it's easy for us to kind of get in the mode too, because a lot of times Clara comes to me to fix something, to do something. Hank kind of gravitates towards Megan, which I think is kind of a normal thing. And so I think sometimes they can see that, like, well, you always help them, or why don't you help me? Sometimes I hear mom, I'm like, didn't offer that. Like, well, let's see what they want. We have to be careful about that too. Like, she's busy and I'm not really doing it. I can step in and be like, hey,
Yeah.
you need to be like.
Yeah. Daphne's favorite expression is, do you not see your dad right here?
I remember asking, I told my dad, because everybody said that he was just the worst kid ever. And I told him that I wished his mother was still around so that I could ask her how to be And he told me, he said, she would tell you that he needs a lot of love and a lot of special attention. And that when his aunt was asked, why do you give certain grandkids more attention than the others? He said, because they need it. But then, to back that up, that goes back to the communication piece. A young child is not going to understand why the brother or sister gets more attention. You're going to have to explain it to them that I don't love them anymore. You're good at being by yourself sometimes. They're not. And they need me right now.
Yeah, and we think about, to a bigger level, is which child did Jesus give the most attention to?
Whoever needs it.
Whoever needed it, the one that was lost, right? 99 are saved, one is lost. Who's he going after? The one that's lost. So giving attention to the ones who really need that help, that's very good. Awesome, guys. Appreciate y'all so much. We'll be on the next lesson, building esteem in your kids.